Good afternoon, I'm Victoria Fritz in the business news. Official public finance data showed the government earned £4.7 billion more than it spent in January. That's roughly half what was forecast. Lower tax receipts are to blame. Retail sales fall by 1.5% last month compared to December, but the good news is they're better than January of the year before. And there are reports in the papers that RBS is planning to cut between 20 and 30,000 jobs, possibly closing its investment banking arm too. RBS says it will not make an announcement ahead of publishing its annual results next week. And a committee of MPs has announced it's going to launch an inquiry looking into how to improve lending to small businesses. The first evidence session will take place next week. Hello to you. Now, first I want to talk to you about the state of the public finances. Now, that's the difference between what the government earns and what they spend. We've also had some unexpected weakness, really, in those numbers for January. There was a surplus of £4.7 billion. But there is often a surplus in January because of an influx of tax money from self-employed people and, of course, businesses. We had been expecting that number to be around the 8 billion mark, though. So public borrowing for the financial year to date is just a shade over 90 billion. Now, this was 4 billion lower than the same period a year earlier, and it does suggest that the government is still just about on track to stick with its deficit reduction plan for the year. Now, public sector net debt currently stands at just under 75% of economic output, or GDP. Christian Schultz, he's a senior economist at Berenberg Bank, explained why the pace of deficit reduction has slowed.
These figures are pretty difficult to forecast, though. There's always moves in when exactly companies pay. There are some indications that maybe this year they weren't as punctual as they usually are. So there could be a bit of a pickup in the next month. But indeed, the speed at which the deficit is coming down is slightly disappointing if you take into account how strong the economy is currently growing.
Up to 500,000 more mothers could be in work if childcare was cheaper and more flexible, a report has said. It might even save the taxpayer £1.5 billion a year. The Institute for Public Policy Research says that childcare costs have risen by 77% over the past decade, with a part-time nursery place costing more than £100 a week. Now let's speak to Dr. Dalia Ben-Galim from the IPPR. Dr. Dalia, thank you very much for joining us. Now, what is actually really behind this? Is it the cost of childcare, or is it a lack of flexibility in maybe the workplaces and also those childcare centres?
Well, I think it's a combination of all of those factors. At IPPR, we tried to compare why childcare costs parents so much more than other OECD countries. And we also looked at the maternal employment rate, and we found that there was a really strong relationship between affordable childcare and higher rates of mums working. So I think that's part of the problem. The cost in the UK is just too prohibitive. A second reason, as you mentioned, is around the lack of flexible work. And many mums in particular find that when they're looking to go back to work or enter work, that the type of flexibility that they want and need to accommodate childcare hours just isn't there either.
Now, your report mentions that there is a clear economic case for childcare, making it cheaper to get more women back into the workplace. How does that work?
Well, what we've done is we've modelled different scenarios around increasing the rate at which mums work. So if there's a 5 percentage point increase to the maternal employment rate, there would be a £750 million gain per year, and that is between savings on benefits and also increased revenue to the Treasury. And if we looked at a 10 percentage point increase, that would put the UK more in line with Scandinavian countries. That would generate almost £1.5 billion per year.
Now, briefly, can you explain to us what support is currently out there for working families?
Well, at the moment, all 3- and 4-year-olds are entitled to 15 hours of childcare, and that's almost universally taken up. And the government's also announced a package for 2-year-olds. 20% of the most disadvantaged currently receive childcare, and another 20% will be rolled out next later on this year. And there's also a system around childcare tax credits through the working tax credit system, and also through employer vouchers for some tax-free childcare.
Dr. Galim, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let's have a quick look, if we can, at the markets. The FTSE 100 up just a shade there. Vodafone is a big winner today. The share price up more than 2%. And have a look at RBS. Shares also rising 1.6%. Perhaps investors pleased with the big cost that will be coming out of the business if those rumours are true, and between 20 and 30,000 jobs are to go. And the CAC 40 in France, it's up this level here. This is the highest level for 5.5 years. There will be more business news, of course, on the website. That's it from me. Have a very good weekend.